go. Oh shit! Oh my god! Oh my god! This thing fucking pulls! Now, as I move over to the Sportster S, man, this thing leans so well. Is this a good beginner bike? To be honest, I wouldn't. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the KS Moto Cafe. We finally get a chance to ride the Sportster S 1250 Revolution Max. And man, it's been a long wait for me because it took a long time for this bike to actually arrive to Canada. Obviously, special thanks to my dealership here, Barnes Harley Davidson dealership. They have 4 locations across Canada, 3 of them in BC and 1 of them in Alberta. And my man Steve, who's our sales consultant, that is allowing me to ride this bad boy. So here are things that I'm going to cover on top of the regular, how it feels and all that stuff. Is 1, how good is the front disc brake, because it's only a 1 single disc rather than 2. But of note, it does have a 4-piston Brembo calipers on it, which doubles the stopping power compared to a regular Sportster that only has a dual piston caliper. As well as the obvious question, whether or not I recommend this bike for a new rider. If you don't know, my channel started a year ago when I first started to learn how to ride on my Iron 883. Since then, I have had the chance to ride all sorts of bikes, including the softail models, and I got a chance to ride all the other Sportsters out there and the Ducati Monster series, which leads me to the fact that this bike is advertised as putting the Sportster back into the Sportster. Think I got that right? Putting the sport back into the Sportster. I think that's how it's been advertised. And I'm going to put that to the test because now I got a chance to actually ride a sport bike, which was a Ducati Monster 1200S. I'm going to compare the acceleration and how the bike reacts on the road and on the turns and on the highway, as well as how it compares to other Harley Davidson models, because obviously it has a name Sportster, but I honestly don't think this can be comparable to any of the Sportster Evo engines out there because they're vastly different in terms of performance, how it's supposed to handle on the road. So I think Harley Davidson just kind of borrowed the name of Sportster, but this definitely does not look like a Sportster yet. I know there's different versions that might be coming out after this, but for now, it kind of reminds me more of a V-Rod and potentially a Fat Bob or a mini Fat Bob. So I'm going to do a little comparison of delivery of power and how it handles compared to the other Harley Davidsons. I'm going to talk about comfort because I do have a lower back issue, and because of the riding ergonomics where you're kind of bent forward and have a little bit more of a taco shape, and whether or not if it gives me a lot of rider's fatigue or back pains after the ride. And then do a side-by-side comparison with my Iron 883 so everyone can see what it looks like head-to-head with an Iron 883. So as soon as you get on the bike, you'll notice right away that this is not a traditional Harley Davidson control panel. It is exactly the same as the Harley Davidson Pan America, the adventure touring bike they released this year. But compared to all the Harley Davidsons out there, this has the most amount of buttons. And to tell you the truth, I'm not a big fan of that, especially this, which is your indicator button. Usually you have a big right indicator on the right thumb and left indicator on the left thumb, which also is programmed to have auto cancel. But for this particular bike and the Pan America, everything's on your left side, and I'm not a big fan of it right now, but we'll see how we go on the ride. One thing that I did notice was that there's a button for cruise control, which obviously this bike comes in stock, and then there's a button for the heated grips, which I thought this bike came with because the button is there, but apparently it only comes as an option. So if your bike doesn't come factory installed with heated grips, you might just get an empty button there. Other than that, it comes with 3 modes, and I'm going to try it all. So I'm going to start out with the rain mode, road mode, and then move on to sport mode if I feel like I'm comfortable on the bike to do so. The mirrors are circular, which is kind of uncommon for a Harley, but it's actually not too bad. It seems very similar to the Indian Scout bobber. I'm not going to talk too much in terms of specs of this motorcycle because there's already a lot of videos out there that you guys can get that knowledge from. What I'm giving you is my own personal experience as a beginner rider who has experience on most of the Sportsters and some of the softails, and kind of give you guys a fair comparison of how that feels to me and whether or not if I feel comfortable in this to recommend it to you all. Now, right off the bat, this bike is 29 inches off the ground. I am able to flat foot this bike. I do have 30 inches of inseam, and I'll show you later when we do a side-by-side with my Iron 883 how this compares. So let's turn this bike on. There we go. Whoa. Now, one thing that I'm going to watch out for is this exhaust heat too, because I am touching it while I'm resting my leg out. So I don't know if that's a safety issue, but I reckon that there's a lot of riders out there who has already ridden this motorcycle and probably had the same issue as I'd have, where you're touching the exhaust, and if you got burnt from it, then I would know by now. So I hope it's okay. Let's see, right now the indication right here is on road mode, so I'm going to change it to rain by pressing this mode button on the right. There you go, rain mode. So as always, what I'm going to do is do a little bit of a friction test and do slow maneuvers around the parking lot here, and then once I get a little bit more confidence, I'll get on the road and then also hit the highway just to test out the speed of this motorcycle. All right, so it is forward control, and let's see how that goes. Ooh. This feels weird. Okay. Oh, it's taking a while for me to get used to the clutch actually. It's actually kind of hard to find the friction zone. Hold on. I'm going to start from here. All right, let's see. Okay, so its friction zone's right about there. Ooh, it's very jumpy. The gear lever or the gear shifter is not as prominent as other Harley Davidson models. Like, I can't even feel the clunk. It's like a very soft push, so I can't really tell if I'm actually changing gear or not. Okay. The bike is super nimble though. So I believe the bike has about 34 degrees of lean angle, which is amazing because my Sportster has 27 and 28. So it's definitely a bonus compared to my Iron 883. Now, I wonder if this bike has quick shifter. That would be cool. Let me see. Oh, it does shift without actually holding in the clutch. I'm not sure if it's supposed to though. Because I know on my Iron 883 you can also kind of quick shift, but it doesn't rev match. So you know what? I don't want to break this bike. It's a brand new bike, so I'm gonna shift on my own. So far what I'm noticing right now is that the bike does not feel heavy. I mean, it is lighter than my Iron 883. It is 500 pounds when it's ridden wet, and compared to my Iron 883, my Iron is 560 pounds. So it definitely cut its weight. It does have a smaller gas tank though, 3.1 gallons compared to 3.3. So most likely if you get the Sportster S, you're not going to be looking at very long rides in between gas stops. Now, contrary to what the seat looks like, which looks very uncomfortable, this seat actually is really nice. I'm not really feeling a lot of pressure on my butt cheeks, which is quite surprising. So far, I'm not seeing too many issues with this bike in slow maneuvers. I'm going to change it to road mode. I just did that there. Let's see if it feels a little bit better. Oh, man. Oh, yeah, this bike definitely has some bite. Oh man, whew. That might be a little too fast for this little road. All right, so what I'm going to be doing now is let's go for a quick ride around town. Hold on, we'll change the battery on the GoPro. All right, let's start her again. Whew. You know, contrary to the first video where I put on the exhaust sound where it sounded like shit, when you're on the bike it actually sounds decent. I guess it just needed to be warmed up. Yeah, it sounds pretty good. All right, let's get going. Woo! And this thing accelerates pretty fast. Let's see, we're at about 4,500 RPMs. It red lines around 9,000 RPM, so I'm only halfway there. But, man, I feel so close to the ground. I think it's because I'm bent forward, but yeah, I definitely feel more closer to the ground. So far, the riding ergonomics is not bothersome. but I do feel that I'm bent quite a bit forward as expected. Trying to rev match is actually a bit of a challenge because I don't really quite know the gear ratio of this motorcycle. And what's throwing me off really is how spongy the gear lever feels. Man, this thing leans so well. Oh, it's got really good engine braking too. So in terms of cornering and the nimbleness, this bike feels super nimble and agile. Now, do I like having forward controls? After riding some of the Softail models, I became a fan of having forward controls on a motorcycle just because it allows me to stretch out my legs a bit. And I think that's because I'm about 5'10" and 30 inches of inseam. If I was any shorter, then I'll probably enjoy the mid controls a bit more. I know a lot of sport bike riders were disappointed that this came with forward controls rather than a mid control, similar to most sport bikes or naked bikes, but it's not too bad. Yeah, like if I had this on the mid control, and I'll show it to you when I do a side-by-side more clearly, I think I'll be feeling a little bit more crammed. And when I mean a little bit, I think a lot more crammed, because this fuel tank, even though it's smaller than the Iron 883, in between my legs it actually feels pretty fat. Like on my Iron, because it's a peanut shaped fuel tank, I actually can't feel it with my knees. Like my legs don't actually rest on the fuel tank. But this one, I'm constantly touching it, like I'm actually hugging it like a sport bike. God, I hate this indicator. It's very distracting. I'm trying to fucking make sure that I get used to it. Let's go do a little bit of shock test on the speed bumps. Let's see. Oh. Ooh, that didn't feel good. The shocks didn't absorb anything. Let me try that again. Yeah, it's not absorbing the shock. Oh. It's possible that the front and the rear shocks aren't adjusted to my rider's weight, because for this particular bike you actually can adjust the rear and the front, and given that the rear actually has 2 inches of clearance, which is double of what I have on my Sportster, theoretically it should feel more comfortable like a Softail, but that one was pretty rough, so I'm gonna ask Steve about that. Oh man, look at this. Whoa, man, this feels good. Whew. Yeah, it definitely feels fast, and I think it feels a lot more faster too, because you're closer to the road than any of the other cruisers I have ridden, where you're kind of more laid back, your head's a bit more higher off the road. But because my face is a lot closer on the road and I'm a bit more tucked in, I feel like I'm going a bit more faster, and that's a good thing because I feel like I'm racing. I love the lean angle on this. I haven't scraped the peg yet. I mean, I wasn't really trying hard to, but usually on some of the turns back there on my Iron 883, I would definitely scrape that peg. But let's see if I can change the mode to sport mode now. Boop. Can I do it on the fly? Yep. Now it's S. Ooh, it feels different. I feel like I just unlocked a level on the bike. As I'm riding the two different modes, I can definitely feel the difference when I'm pulling on the throttle. The sport mode definitely is more torquier in the beginning. Now let's see if I can get on the highway and see if I can get up to speed. Oh man. Okay, so that wasn't the highway. Anytime I see like a little bit of space for me to kind of open the throttle, I really feel like I have to pull on it, because this bike has a lot of juice, and I wanna use that juice. If I can do like a 0 to 100. Okay, no one. Here we go. Oh shit! Oh my god! Oh my god! This thing fucking pulls! Holy crap! Whoa! Oh man! This I gotta concentrate here. Oh, buds. Okay, calm down. Okay, so because of this unique riding ergonomics, when you pull on the throttle, like your butt's about to take off from the seat, like pulling backwards, and I feel like I'm holding on for my dear life like this, so I have to really crouch forward when I'm accelerating on the highway because it has no fairings, right? There's no protection from the wind, and you're just feeling everything. The acceleration is definitely there. Oh my god. Let's see if I can pull this. Oh. Woo, buddy. That is fast. You know, I've been wanting to do this with the Pan America during the test ride, but I wasn't allowed to. So glad I'm able to do this on the Sportster S. Guys, this bike has a lot of power. I love it. But let's see. Gotta exit. Oh, let's do some chill ride. The sport mode is definitely good. Now, if I'm comparing this acceleration speed with the naked sport bike like the Ducati 1200 or the 821, I would definitely say the Ducati 1200 definitely has more acceleration power, but this is not far behind it. I'm not gonna lie. If I compared this to the Fat Bob, I would say that this is definitely faster than the Fat Bob. So if you're looking for a performance cruiser, which used to be the Fat Bob, in my opinion, I think the Sportster S takes the belt for that one from the Harley Davidson. Obviously, there's other motorcycles out there from a different manufacturer that considers themselves as the performance-based cruiser. But from Harley, I think it's got a new Speed King. I gotta try the highway again. It was too good. Oh my god. This thing accelerates so fast. Like, look at it go. No issues. No issues. Come on, Chevy. Out of the way. Thank you. Yeah, this bike flies, guys. Oh, but you get a lot of wind resistance, so definitely a lot of wind fatigue, should I say, that builds up on my leg and my arm, my head. But it's fun. It's really hard to see with these mirrors, though. But acceleration. Oh, I just wanted to get up to the 6th gear just to prove a point that I can get up to the 6th gear. Oh boy, that was refreshing. Oh man, the highway ride was fun, but it was also quite tiring. But that's also because I was going a little bit more faster than I'm used to. But how can you not on this bike? So let's answer one of the questions that one of my viewers asked. Is this a good beginner bike? To be honest, I would not recommend this to a new rider. And I'm being completely honest here. The reason why I really got to enjoy my Iron 883 or my Sportster was because I was able to make mistakes on that bike, because it's a very forgiving bike. But this particular bike, the Sportster S, even if you're on rain mode, yeah, I guess you can, but you'll be very tempted on trying the road mode and the sport mode. And I gotta say, like, even after 1 year of riding, I don't feel as confident with this bike right now. And the riding style is slightly awkward. And for a new rider to ride something that's a little bit awkward to get on and has a lot of tremendous amount of power and torque, like it's a lot to bear with. Now, one thing that's going for the bike is it's not very heavy. It's 500 pounds. For a cruiser, that's actually nothing. So you can definitely flick this bike around easily, but by starting out with forward control and having all this power between your legs and the shifter that is barely noticeable when you're shifting up and down, I don't know, I think it's a tough sell for new riders. So hopefully when Harley Davidson gets rid of the Evo models, that they produce a smaller version of the Revolution Max Sportster, like the 975 I think they already have designed for. because this Revolution Max 1250T is a lot of power. So my answer is no, I would not recommend this to a new rider. Would I recommend this bike for a rider with some experience? Yeah, I could do that, because I'm in that boat right now. I mean, I had 1 year of riding experience, and to be honest, I'm riding it fine. Obviously, there are certain skills that I can definitely develop on, so I can maneuver this bike a little bit more efficiently. But I'm on sport mode. I'm not feeling too scared or stressed out. You definitely need that extra time to just get used to the bike. So yeah, for somebody who has a little bit of experience, let's say you have the Iron 883 and you had it for a couple months, and you're looking for something more powerful, more fun, and you want to stick with the Harley Davidson brand, definitely try the Sportster S, because definitely different style riding. I would say it's a good mix between the Sportster 48 with the forward controls and the fat front tire, and the Roadster, which has a higher seat and lowered handlebar where you have a bit more aggressive stance. The other question I wanted to answer was, how is the front braking of this motorcycle? Well, it's actually pretty decent. Having 4-piston caliper definitely helps with the braking power on this motorcycle. I still would have preferred if Harley Davidson made this with the dual disc brakes, just so I can have a bit more confidence on braking. But yeah, it's not bad. But yeah, front brakes feel pretty good. It catches on easily, so I don't have any worry about the front brakes. So let's get back to Harley Davidson and just talk a little bit more. I'll give you guys what I like and what I don't like about this bike. Where can I do a side-by-side? Now let's see if this actually got hot. Hope I don't burn myself. Oh, it's actually quite cool. Now what about this? Oh, yep, no, that's definitely hot. Yeah, so this heat shield is on top of another heat shield, because you can kind of see it here. That's the actual exhaust. This is the heat shield, and this is a secondary heat shield. So yeah, your legs aren't gonna burn. I definitely didn't feel it, because my entire ride, my thighs were actually touching this, so it was pretty good. Wow, guys, I finally got to finish the ride with the Sportster S model, which is on my left here, and then my Iron 883, which is on my right, which is my bike that I've been riding for a year or so. They're just two very different bikes. They have the same name as a Sportster, but let me tell you, the Sportster S is not the traditional evil Sportster, and I think that's pretty obvious. You should already know that going into this. Having ridden my Iron 883 for over a year now, and having got the chance to ride the different softail models, different Sportsters, as well as a Ducati monster out there, the Sportster S is in its own completely different segment of a cruiser, and it definitely meets that demand of calling itself as a performance cruiser, because man, that thing has a lot of bite. It was going so fast, and there was a threshold of having fun to like being a little bit concerned. And I was just kind of playing in that level where I was having fun and scared at the same time, especially in the sport mode, because this thing, when you pull on the throttle, it just takes off. And I did feel the front tire lifting off just a bit off the road at certain times when I was accelerating a little bit too hard. And I've never felt that on any other bike, even on the Ducati Monster 1200. Like, it's different. And having that forward control with the lowered handlebar, it makes a big difference. So let me just get into the scene here and just kind of show you guys what it looks like. All right, so as I come into the picture here, I'm about 5'10", and I have about 30 inches of inseam. This is the Sportster S that I just got to finish riding, and this is my Iron 883 from 2020. Because this is a mid-control motorcycle and I have a 4-inch riser on my Iron 883, my rider's triangle is a perfect right triangle that you can tell my back is really straight, and I have a very comfortable stance. I have a clear 90-degree angle on my legs here, and I feel very comfortable on this ride. And I can ride like this forever. And as you can tell, it is 26 inches of seat height, which is 3 inches lower than the Sportster S, and I can flat foot this bike pretty easily. So as a first-time rider or beginner rider, this bike is definitely a good fit for a new rider. Now, as I move over to the Sportster S, you can already tell the seat is slightly higher, right? And as I hop over onto the bike, I can still flat foot this bike, but you can tell between this and the Iron 883, I definitely have less bend on my knees when I'm straight up. Now, when I have my foot on the forward pegs, and my hands on the handlebar, you'll see that I have quite the bend. You can definitely see what I was talking about where I'm saying I have a very clam or taco shape riding style, where rider's triangle between the handlebar to the foot to my ass is a very tight triangle. And you guys probably noticed that when I was on the highway going on higher speeds, I actually had to bend over quite a bit to fight all that wind resistance. I didn't really have that kind of issue when I was riding the Iron 883, most likely because I wasn't going that fast. And I found that riding like this straight up was a lot of wind, so you actually kind of naturally tuck yourself in on top of the fuel tank here. Now the fuel tank is a 3.1 gallon compared to my 3.3, but when you're on the bike it actually feels huge. Like this fuel tank is really wide onto its side, where my entire legs were definitely hugging this fuel tank, and actually felt pretty good. And I think that's how you're supposed to ride on most of the sport bikes, where you're actually hugging the fuel tank. So you can see if I'm riding like this naturally, my lower back does have that bend, and I was concerned about having lower back fatigue or pain after the ride, but I'm not feeling anything right now. So what that tells me is that this riding ergonomics has been tested with a bunch of people and has been proven that actually is a comfortable ride. There was a question of whether or not this bike would be good fit for someone who's a 6'2". Given that I'm 5'10" and you add yourself 4 more inches, and depending on how long your legs are, I definitely think having forward control is a better option for taller riders compared to if you had mid control. So the Sportster S mod with mid control is actually near this derby cover here. Let's say the foot peg here is actually where the gear shifter would be. Then I must say, like, yeah, as a 5'10" with 30 inches inseam, it's actually quite comfortable because it's similar to my Iron 883. And to be honest, I think I'll have an easier time shifting. So yeah, I think I would actually enjoy having mid control on this particular bike, just for the control aspect of it. But in terms of comfort, this definitely feels more comfortable, because I am starting to become more of a fan of forward control, because it does give you a little bit more leg space to stretch out on. But overall, I think this bike is very unique, and Harley Davidson has done a very good job designing a new particular bike and trying to bring in new customers from different types of riders out there. Even if you're not interested in this bike, if you're able to actually get on the bike and try it out, I would definitely recommend trying it, because out of all Harley Davidsons out there, I don't know what this bike can be compared to, because it's quite unique. If I compare the Revolution Max to an Evolution, it's not even like a fair competition, because they're completely different types of motorcycle engines. But if I compare this to a Softail Milwaukee 8, because they're at a very similar price point, I would say if you're looking for performance and speed, go for the Revolution Max, because it is faster. And if you're looking for a more classic V-twin traditional Harley sound, then most likely I would say I'd push you towards Milwaukee 8 or going back to an Evolution engine. And yeah, like, it speaks volumes in terms of how they're representing this as saying this is a sport bike for Harley Davidson, and I think they're in the right trajectory. Now, there's probably going to be a lot of people out there who hates this bike just for the sake of how it looks, how it's supposed to perform. That's fine. Like, I think Harley Davidson has tons of other models out there for you. This particular model, I think, is to grab attention from non-Harley owners, because majority of the people that ask me about this particular bike or are interested in this bike are actually sport bike owners who are starting to look into the cruiser world, and rather than just jumping right into a bagger, they want like the in-between type where it has a little bit better performance but has a comfort of a cruiser. And I think this bike delivers that for you perfectly. It is a hybrid. I can definitely tell you it feels like a hybrid, which is why it feels so new to me. But I would say good job, Harley, making this, and I'm looking forward to the next few iterations of what Revolution Max engine bikes that Harley Davidson will come up with. So if you like this review, please click that subscribe and like button, and support this channel by commenting below. Other than that, ride safe, ride prepared, ride on. Peace.